Westernspring Television. Ours it is.
President-elect Bola Tinubu says he understands magnitude of task ahead as he receives a GCFR honor. In Kano State, Attorney General withdraws murder case against House of Reps Majority Leader Al-Hazan Adodogua. The Joint Health Sector Union Johesu asks members to embark on indefinite strike. On the foreign scene, 3 people killed in stabbing and shooting attack in central Japan. Good evening. This is News at 7 on Westernspring Television. My name is Femi Olanipekun. President-elect Bola Tinubu says he understands the magnitude of the task ahead as he prepares to take on the mantle of leadership. The former governor of Lagos was declared winner of the February 25th presidential election after defeating Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and Peter Obi of the Labour Party. Senator Tinubu was conferred with the Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic (GCFR), the highest national honor, while the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima was bestowed with the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger (GCON). Speaking after receiving the honor in Abuja, the president-elect told President Muhammadu Buhari to expect knocks on his door whether he goes to Daura or Niger Republic. Senator Tinubu, who is expected to be sworn in as president on May 29th, said it will not disappoint President Buhari and Nigerians. He also praised the outgoing president for honoring the winner of the annulled June 12, 1993 presidential election, the late MKO Abiola.
Now, a great duty will descend on me. I understand the meaning of the honor given to me today and the magnitude of the task that awaits. Whether you go to Daura or Niger or anywhere, you expect knocks on your doors.
Earlier, President Muhammadu Buhari said he is confident that Nigeria is in capable hands. He said this when he conferred national honors on President-elect Bola Tinubu and the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima. The event also marked the official handover of transition documents from President Buhari to Senator Tinubu. Speaking at the event, the president said he has run a good race, while calling on Senator Tinubu not to forget that leadership comes with responsibility. Senator Tinubu will be sworn into office on May 29th at Eagle Square in Abuja.
That will lead Nigeria towards greater progress and prosperity. I extend my warmest congratulations to the President-elect and his well-deserved victory at the February 25th, 2023 presidential election. The Nigerian people have recognized your leadership qualities, political acumen, and passion to serve our great nation, and have entrusted you with the burden of governing our beloved country. I have no doubt that Nigeria will continue to thrive and achieve new heights under your leadership. You are the best candidate at the elections, and Nigerians have chosen wisely.
And as the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari winds down, there have been discussions around its performance in infrastructural development. In this report, Olayinka Ali examines the development under the Buhari-led administration in terms of power, railway, and road.
As Muhammadu Buhari rounds up his 8 years tenure as the president of Nigeria, it is important to take note of his infrastructural development in the country. A spokesperson, Femi Adesina, had stated earlier in a fact sheet that the Buhari's regime had and is constructing over 961-kilometer stretch of rail lines crisscrossing the nation. The question is, has the rail lines cut across the nation truly? The question was answered by a Nigerian, Mark Ojo, who in his opinion feels Buhari has not done well enough in terms of railway infrastructures because major cities in the country are not connected. Similarly, Mohammed Muibi, who spoke in his native language, Yoruba, stated that the rate at which people ply the railway now is not frequent in Osun State compared to when he was younger because the Buhari's administration has not invested in the railway system in this part of the country.
I don't think he has done much. Since major cities in the country are not connected, and then taking the rail to Niger for those who do not pay tax, do not contribute anything to the progress of the country. So I don't praise him on that.
Àtẹ̀yìnwá àwọn rélùwé máa ń lọ wọn máa ń bọ̀ dáadáa ṣùgbọ́n láti àkókò àwọn ìjọba pàápàá àti kò àwọn olóṣèlú wa ní tírínì ò ṣe dàbí ti àtẹ̀yìnwá mọ́ tó tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ àwọn èèyàn ó ti dúró de tírínì bíi everyday tí ó lè ṣe kí ó máa wà ṣùgbọ́n nísìnyí tí bá ṣe pé ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun bá sọ pé kí tírínì ò kéèyàn wá kì í sábà wá déédéé mọ́.
The fact sheet also highlighted other infrastructural gains in terms of power, but sadly it looks like the power crisis is deep. The power sector has defeated every administration since 1999, Buhari's regime inclusive, with the suffering of a wide infrastructure deficit, shortages and prolonged blackouts, and heavy debt. The chairman of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Oshogbo chapter, Engineer Wasiu Idowu, stated that the power sector is a capital intensive one because the investment is huge, while the running cost is likewise huge because of the kind of system being operated in Nigeria. Idowu disclosed that under Buhari's administrations, there has been tremendous change.
The sector has been divided into three, and two sectors have been privatized, the generation and the distribution. As per the transmission sector that is still under the government, we can say they have tried. If you look at our environment here, particularly Oshogbo, you can see that at our 330 kV power site, the installed capacity of our transformer here before Buhari administration was 390 megawatts. Our MVA, 390 MVA transmission or transformer capacity. But presently, we have an ongoing additional 300 MVA transformer, meaning that the wheeling capacity of our 330 kV side have been almost doubled. The same thing goes for the 132 kV side. Before, what we had was 60-60-30. That's around 150 MVA 132 kV wheeling capacity. Presently, there is an additional 100 MVA transformer installation going on that is almost completed.
A human rights activist and chairman of Osun Civil Society Coalition, Comrade Waheed Lawal, feels Buhari may have done well in terms of infrastructure, but the reality is there is deficit of dilapidated infrastructure across the country.
But the reality is that we have deficit of dilapidated infrastructure across the country. Osun, for instance, many of the federal roads are death traps. If you look at it from Ikire down to Ife, some other roads that are federal roads here, the road is too bad. And I still not the reason why Buhari cannot work on this. Buhari has Nigeria as his own constituency because he's the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But they focus their attention on certain part of the country.
The Muhammadu Buhari-led government winds down on May 29th, 2023. Olayinka Ali, Westernspring Television News.
The Department of State Services, DSS, has urged the media and civil society organizations to shun fake news, false alarms, and sensationalism ahead of the May 29th inauguration. In a statement today, DSS spokesperson Peter Afunaya said the call was to guard against reports that could inflame division, tension, and violence prior to and after the inauguration. Mr. Afunaya said the service was aware of plans by subversive elements to disrupt the program in parts of the country. The DSS spokesperson said undesirable acts would serve no purpose other than destroy national unity and cohesion. Mr. Afunaya warned all unauthorized and non-accredited persons to stay away from restricted and certain designated areas at inauguration venues. He called on the public to remain calm and law-abiding, adding that the DSS would continue to sustain collaborations with sister agencies to ensure successful inauguration ceremonies nationwide. Moving on, the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has slapped a fine of 40 million naira on the presidential candidate of the Hope Democratic Party, Ambrose Owuru, for filing a suit against the president-elect Bola Tinubu's inauguration. The Abuja-based lawyer had filed a lawsuit with which he had sought to prevent the May 29th inauguration from taking place at the Eagle Square in the Federal Capital Territory. In the judgment today, a three-member panel of the court was unanimous in holding that the appeal by Mr. Owuru and his party, the HDP, amounted to an abuse of the court process. In the lead judgment, Justice Jamil Tukur held that the appeal was an invitation for the court to review its earlier decision, which it cannot do. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, today swore in 39 additional judges to man the election petition tribunals currently sitting across the Federation. The CJN, during the ceremony, which took place at the Supreme Court, said the judges were found worthy to be appointed as additional members of tribunals that have been saddled with an avalanche of petitions trailing the 2023 election. Administering the oath on the newly appointed election petition tribunal judges, the CJN instructed them to live above board and to submit to the sanctity of the rule of law and the discharge of the judicial functions, stressing that the country needs peace. At this crucial phase, Justice Ariwola admonished them not to allow sentiments and public opinion to betray their sense of judgment. It will be recalled that the CJN had earlier sworn in 307 judicial officers to preside over petitions from the 2023 general election. And in Kano State, the State Attorney General Musa Abdullahi Lawal has withdrawn the murder case against Majority Leader of the House of Representatives, Alhassan Doguwa. Briefing journalists in Kano, Mr. Abdullahi Lawal said the ministry could not substantiate the charges against legislator based on facts available. On February 28th, Representative Ado Doguwa was arrested at the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport while boarding a flight to Abuja. The police had said they received a report that he led thugs to set ablaze the secretariat of the NNPP in Kano, in which 2 persons were feared dead. Although the legislator denied any wrongdoing, he was arraigned in March at a magistrate court in Kano and was later remanded in prison. He was granted bail in the sum of 500 million naira by a federal high court after a few days in prison. At a press briefing today, the Attorney General said the claims made by individuals who accused Representative Doguwa were contradictory and lacked medical proof of the victims' deaths. The House of Representatives today grilled the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, over the alleged illegal sale of 48 million barrels of crude oil in China, valued at over $2.4 billion. Mr. Malami, in company with the Solicitor General of the Federation, Beatrice Jedi-Agba, appeared before the ad hoc committee. While the ministry made a written representation to the committee, Mr. Malami restated his earlier position about the allegation and the probe. He asked the lawmakers to avail him of documents and facts at their disposal to assist him in aiding the investigation. It is the second time that officials will be appearing since the probe began. The minister, when he first appeared before the committee on April 27, 2023, had told the lawmakers that the allegation that 48 million barrels of crude oil valued at over $2.4 billion was illegally sold to China was false. And talking health, the Joint Health Sector Union, JOHESU, has asked its members to embark on an indefinite strike. The National Vice Chairman of JOHESU, Obinna Ogbonna, gave the directive today at a news conference in Abuja. The leadership of JOHESU had earlier issued a 15-day ultimatum to the federal government over alleged inconsistencies in the ongoing negotiations to adjust the consolidated health salary structure. Tobi Sanusi completes the story.
Earlier in February 2021, the Joint Health Sector Unions, JOHESU, an assembly of healthcare professional associations, had written the Federal Ministry of Health for the adjustment of the Consolidated Health Salary Structure, CONHES, among other demands, but the letter was not met with government intervention. The union was dissatisfied after the Consolidated Medical Salary Structure was reviewed for doctors, but has not been reviewed for other healthcare workers. The delay in government intervention further led to the latest strike action declared by the union. On Thursday, JOHESU declared an indefinite strike action over the non-adjustment of CONHES, non-payment of hazard allowance to health workers. Other demands include payment of withheld salaries of health workers in Federal Medical Center, Owerri, Jos Teaching Hospital, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, and speedy adjustment of retirement age from 60 to 65 years, the exclusion of some health workers in the new payment of new hazard allowance, and payment of COVID-19 allowance balance. Before the strike was declared on Thursday, JOHESU, which encompasses health workers under Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, M1, Nigeria Union of Allied Health Professionals, Senior Staff Association of Universities, Teaching Hospitals, and Associated Institutions, had given the federal government a 15-day ultimatum to meet its several demands, but the ultimatum expired without government intervention. This is coming just few days after the National Association of Resident Doctors, NARD, called off its warning strike action 5 days after it had left impact on the nation's healthcare service. Healthcare delivery at government hospitals will be badly impacted by the indefinite strike, as doctors who are not part of the strike action will be handicapped in the discharge of their duties, as no other health workers, including cleaners, administrative staff, security, among others, were down tools. Meanwhile, as many government hospitals observed the strike action during a visit to the Union Teaching Hospital of Shobo, the Osun State capital, it was observed that the strike action was ineffective as healthcare workers were seen on duty. It was, however, gathered that 3 unions under the aegis of JOHESU at the Union Teaching Hospital agreed to defy the strike action and continue operations. But the JOHESU at the Obafemi Awolowo University Teaching Hospital, OAUTHC, complied with the strike action. It is, however, no doubt that the access to healthcare delivery and operations across the nation will be crippled if the strike action tarries for long. Tobi Sanusi, Westernspring Television News.
You're watching News at 7 on Westernspring Television. Still to come, President Buhari describes 9th National Assembly as one of the most productive in terms of output and outcome. We'll bring you more on these when we return. Please do stay with us.
On 16 September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwives the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23rd March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used his political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Westernspring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was an anti-apartheid activist who gave his all for the elimination of what has been described as the world's most vicious rule of the unjust and man's inhumanity against man. He was born July 18, 1918 in Mvezo, South Africa. Educated and trained as a successful legal practitioner, he took up the gauntlet of a human activist against segregation by the minority white suprematists in South Africa. At the climax of his trial for treason, orchestrated by the minority South African government, the great crusader for democratic equality was prepared to pay the supreme sacrifice to establish majority rule in his native land. He told white jurists that if achieving freedom for his people was worth his life, he was prepared to die. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in Robben Island, described as the most notorious prison in the world. It was from this same prison that he came out as a free man to assume office as South Africa's first black president in 1994. Westernspring Television identifies Nelson Mandela as a watershed character in history. Named Mao Zedong at birth, but globally known as Mao Zedong, he was a Chinese revolutionary and founder, People's Republic of China, which he led as chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from 1949 until his death in 1976. He was a communist who believed in the attainment of power by the instrumentality of gun. His wise saying, "Political power grows out of the barrel of gun," formed the major plank of his revolutionary struggle for the control of China. In the long span of his leadership and political power, Mao Zedong relentlessly entrenched the communist philosophy in China, which emphasized the revolutionary struggle of the vast majority of people against the exploiting class and their state structures. The communist leaders defined the class struggle as people's war. Mao Zedong was a story of grass to grace, having risen from peasantry to preeminent status as China's most respected leader. Westernspring Television identifies Mao Zedong as a major character in history.
Welcome back. This is still news at 7 on Westernspring Television. A reminder of our headlines. President-elect Bola Tinubu says he understands the magnitude of task ahead as he receives GCFR honor. In Kano State, Attorney General withdraws murder case against House of Reps Majority Leader Al-Hassan Ado-Doguwa. The Joint Health Sector Union, JOHESU, asks the members to embark on indefinite strike. And on the foreign scene, 3 people killed in stabbing and shooting attack in central Japan. President Muhammadu Buhari has described the 9th National Assembly led by Senate President Ahmed Lawan and House of Representatives Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila as one of the most productive in terms of output and outcome. He said this today at the inauguration of the permanent site of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies in Abuja. He thanked the leadership of the National Assembly for their support, emphasizing the importance of the legislature in a democracy. President Buhari said that he refrained from meddling in the affairs of the legislature to encourage an independent National Assembly.
I supported the idea of an independent National Assembly, one that is able to decide its leadership and develop its agenda in line with the manifesto of the All Progressive Congress, the APC. I refrained from meddling in the affairs of the legislature and promoted instead a culture of mutual respect and collaboration between the two arms. numerous positive outcomes of our country underscore the importance of a harmonious executive-legislative relationship. Working with the National Assembly, we have passed an unprecedented number of bills into law, provided funding for key infrastructure reforms of government.
The Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum has called on the federal government to rescind its request for a fresh $800 million loan from the World Bank. On May 10th, President Muhammadu Buhari sent a letter to the Senate seeking approval to take the loan to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. But in a communique issued after its meeting today, the Southern and Middle Belt leaders expressed worry about the nation's huge debt, especially as the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari winds down on May 29th. On the post-election cases before the tribunal in Abuja, the forum urged the judiciary to be transparent in determining all petitions brought before it. It commends Nigerian youths for participating in the 2023 general elections, saluting their courage and astuteness, calling on them not to become discouraged by some of the seeming outcomes. The Southern and Middle Belt leaders told them that the struggle for the needed change has just begun. As tribunals continue their work across Nigeria, the group advised the judiciary to dispense justice. Elsewhere, 2 persons have been confirmed dead in a lone accident involving a truck at the Kara end of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It was gathered that the accident occurred around 8 p.m. yesterday, and the truck was conveying tubers of yam to Ogun State. The Ogun State Commandant of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Ahmed Omar, attributed it to speed limit violations, brake failure, and loss of control. He said the vehicle has been towed away from the road, and the police have taken custody of the crashed vehicle as well as the corpses. A human rights lawyer, Femi Falana, has filed a lawsuit against the Chief of Army Staff over the extrajudicial killing of a police officer, Inspector Monday Orupe, at the Trade Fair section of the Lagos-Badagry Expressway area of Lagos State in August 2022 in the course of his official duties. Joined in the suit as respondents are 10 other Army officers. The suit was filed today on behalf of Mrs. Favor Monday for the enforcement of her husband's fundamental human rights to life, the dignity of human person, private and family life, and presumption of innocence. In the suit, Mr. Falana is arguing that the deceased's fundamental rights were grossly violated. No date has been fixed for the hearing of the suit. On the foreign scene, 3 people have been killed in a stabbing and shooting attack in central Japan. A man in camouflage is said to have stabbed a woman and then used a hunting rifle in the city of Nagano Prefecture. 2 policemen were also killed and another person was injured. Japanese media reports that the alleged attacker is holed inside a building. Gun violence remains extremely rare in Japan, despite the killing of ex-Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in July last year. The warring sides in Sudan have accused each other of being behind breaches of the latest ceasefire, which is now in its 3rd day. A 1-week truce was violated minutes after it came into effect on Monday night, with residents of the capital Khartoum witnessing airstrikes and artillery fire. Sporadic clashes between the army and a paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, spilled over into today. The conflict has exacerbated an existing humanitarian crisis, forcing more than 1.3 million people to flee and threaten to destabilize the region. Meanwhile, the UNCHR Principal Situation Coordinator in Darfur, Toby Howard, has appealed for more funding to respond to the resultant effect of the crisis.
About the humanitarian implications of the current crisis in Sudan and to call for your support to help those affected. The situation in Sudan is dire. UNHCR estimates that more than 800,000 refugees and returnees may flee Sudan in the coming months. The most significant cross-border movements thus far have been Sudanese refugees arriving in Chad and Egypt. Most new arrivals in Chad and South Sudan are women and children. We have activated our global supply chain, including orders for tens of thousands of core relief items from our global stockpiles. However, we need much more support to provide vital assistance to those in need. Let us not forget the people of Sudan, and let us do everything we can to help them during this difficult time.
To the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's Wagner mercenary group has started withdrawing its forces from the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Its founder, Yevgeny Prigozhin, in a video posted on Telegram by his press service, said his troops are withdrawing from Bakhmut starting from today to the 1st of June. Mr. Prigozhin said that most of the units will rebase to camps in the rear while handing their positions to the Russian military. He announced the capture of Bakhmut on Saturday after the longest and bloodiest battle of the war. In the United Kingdom, the annual net migration of Britain reached a record high of 606,000 last year, keeping pressure on British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who has pledged to bring down numbers. According to the Office for National Statistics, the increase was driven by non-European Union nationals, including refugees under the British government's Ukraine visa schemes and people migrating for work and education. Mr. Sunak told ITV following the release of the data that the numbers are too high, pointing reforms he plans to take to address the issue.
Numbers are too high. It's as simple as that, and I want to bring them down. And that's why this week we announced some new measures, and I think pretty much the biggest thing that anyone's ever announced to bring the levels of migration down. And it's a new policy which limits the amount of family members that people who are studying here can bring with them when they come and study here. And what we've seen over the last few years is that number of dependents has just absolutely spiraled. Almost 150,000 dependents of people who are studying here coming. We're saying from now on, that's not going to be allowed. There's a few other things we're doing as well, but that's going to make a big difference because I want to get the numbers down. And people have heard me talking a lot about illegal migration and stopping the boats. This matters as well. Well, no, I think the numbers are just too high. And there's been various factors, and you'll read the report, whether it was welcoming people here from Hong Kong or Ukraine, that's had an impact. As we saw after the pandemic, more people came back to study here who hadn't been here during the pandemic years. Look, but fundamentally, the numbers are high. I want to bring them down.
And after months of anticipation, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has officially launched his United States presidential campaign in a rocky, glitch-filled broadcast over Twitter. His announcement was delayed for more than 20 minutes after technical issues yesterday. The bumpy announcement sets up a fight between DeSantis and the presumed Republican frontrunner, former President Donald Trump.
Our border is a disaster. Crime infests our cities. The federal government makes it harder for families to make ends meet, and the president flounders. But decline is a choice. Success is attainable, and freedom is worth fighting for. I'm Ron DeSantis, and I'm running for president to lead our great American comeback.
Ron DeSantis' long-awaited entry into the 2024 race for the White House was hit by technical glitches after a Twitter livestream malfunctioned. The Twitter broadcast of the hour-long interview, which was hosted by Twitter CEO Elon Musk and right-wing entrepreneur David Sachs and had been intended as the formal launch for the DeSantis campaign, lost sound for extended stretches, and thousands of users were either unable to join or were dropped.
We'll be interviewing Ron DeSantis, and he has quite an announcement to make. And it will be the first time that something like this is happening on social media and with real-time questions and answers. Not scripted.
DeSantis went on to use the event to champion his conservative credentials, his anti-lockdown stance, and education reforms. The Florida governor is viewed as former President Donald Trump's chief rival to be their party's candidate in the 2024 general election. His entrance in the Republican contest sets up a showdown with his one-time ally, former President Donald Trump, who lost the 2020 presidential election to Democrat Joe Biden. He is a relative relative newcomer in U.S. politics, having first been elected to the House of Representatives in 2012. Just 6 years later, in 2018, after a failed bid to become a senator, he was elected governor of Florida. Having overseen the enactment of high-profile laws that make it easier to own a gun, restrict sex and gender identity education in schools, and curtail abortion access, DeSantis claims that this Florida blueprint can act as a guide for federal policies, one that would move the U.S. in a sharply conservative direction. He defended his reforms of Florida's education system, saying his state chose facts over fear, education over indoctrination, law and order over rioting and disorder. He joins a growing list of contenders seeking to unseat Mr. Trump, who leads the Republican field by more than 30 points in national opinion polls. By the time Wednesday evening's Twitter talk had begun in earnest, hundreds of thousands of Twitter users had left the platform. Mr. DeSantis' team worked quickly to spin the technical stumbles, writing on Twitter that the announcement had broken the internet with so much excitement, and posting a link to the campaign website. His press secretary Brian Griffin claims the online event had raised $1 million in an hour.
Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society, normalcy to our communities, and integrity to our institutions.
Temitope Ajijalaoluola, Westernspring Television.
Still ahead, South Africa's central bank raises main interest rates to 14-year high. We have more of these and other business stories after this break. Please do stay with us.
Aminatu, the legendary queen of Zazao, is best known to historians as Queen Amina of Zaria, an old walled town and capital of the Hausa state of Zazao. Amina was a great warrior and the first woman to rule the ancient kingdom of Zazao. Her 34 years as queen witnessed an unprecedented expansion of Zazao by conquests. Queen Amina of Zaria belongs to the class of Amazons by the might of her army and her strings of conquests. She opened Zaria to trans-border trade and was said to have initiated kola nut cultivation in the ancient kingdom. The Hausa Muslim figure was born in 1533 and died in 1610 at the age of 77 years. Folklores remember Aminatu, the queen of Zazao, as a brave, smart and talented leader whose giant statue now adorns the National Arts Theatre in Lagos, Nigeria, while many educational institutions bear her name. Westernspring Television identifies Queen Amina as a watershed character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Westernspring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history. Born Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905, Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Westernspring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
You're welcome back. And now to business. Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, explained reasons why President Muhammadu Buhari has continued to award contracts as well as borrow despite having just a few days left until the end of his tenure. According to Mr. Fashola, the tenure of the Buhari-led administration will officially wind down at midnight on May 28. Hence, most of the projects embarked on must be funded, particularly that governance must be up and running to the president's last day in office. It disclosed these while flagging off the dualization of the Akure-Ado Highway, which has for years been in a deplorable state, while stressing that infrastructural development can only be actualized through borrowing or taxation. Mr. Fashola stated that the project, which will cost 90 billion naira, will be taken care of by NNPCL through the tax credit policy of the federal government. He also added that the Procurement Act must be looked into by the 10th National Assembly, as it stated that the law will slow down the development the Nigerians desire. South Africa's central bank raised its main interest rate today to a 14-year high and also revised up inflation forecast. The bank lifted the benchmark rate by 0.5 percentage points to 8.25% in what it said was a unanimous decision of the Monetary Policy Committee. It was the 10th consecutive hike by the South African Reserve Bank. Governor Leseja Kyangiago said the policy is aimed at increasing confidence that inflation could be reined in sustainably over time. The rand dropped to record lows after the announcement and was trading at 19.74 against the dollar.
Reaching a prudent public debt level, increasing the supply of energy, moderating administered price inflation, and keeping wage growth in line with productivity gains would enhance the effectiveness of monetary policy and its transmission to the broader economy. As usual, the repo rate projection from the quarterly projection model remains a broad policy guide, changing from meeting to meeting in response to new data and risks. The economic and financial conditions are expected to remain more volatile for the foreseeable future.
In the meantime, persistent inflation has helped push Germany into recession in the first 3 months of the year. Growth data shows that Europe's largest economy was also badly affected. Russian gas supplies dried up after the invasion of Ukraine. The Statistics Office said the economy contracted by 0.3% between January and March. That followed a 0.5% contraction in the last 3 months of last year. A country is deemed to be in recession when its economy shrinks for 2 consecutive 3-month periods or quarters. Microsoft and the Five Eyes network of Western intelligence partners have accused Chinese state-sponsored hackers of carrying out attacks against critical infrastructure in the United States. According to spy and cybersecurity agencies from Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and US, Volt Typhoon, a Chinese state-sponsored hacking group linked to espionage activities in the past, was behind the attacks, which used techniques that could be used in other countries besides the US. Microsoft, in a separate statement, said the campaign had been active since mid-2021 and targeted manufacturing, utility, transportation, construction, maritime, government, information technology, and education sectors in Guam and elsewhere in the US. Microsoft said it had moderate confidence the attack was intent on disrupting critical communications infrastructure between the United States and Asia region during future crises. Meanwhile, China has accused the US and its allies of waging a disinformation campaign. All right, welcome to sports. FIFA has ordered Egyptian Premier League club Smoha SC to pay Nigerian forward Junior Ajayi $70,000. Ajayi linked up with Smoha in October 2022 after severing ties with Libyan outfit Al Nazar Benghazi. The 27-year-old, however, sustained an injury in a pre-season friendly against Canal Club the same month. The versatile striker claimed he was left unattended to by the club and was also not paid his salaries. FIFA has now given Smoha 15 days to pay Ajayi the sum of $70,000. The player will be looking to revive his career following persistent injuries. And the president of the Nigeria Football Federation, Ibrahim Goso, has hailed the Flying Eagles for their impressive 2-0 win over Italy at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup. He also urged the team to go for all 3 points against Brazil in their final group game to sustain their winning mentality. Victory means the Flying Eagles have qualified for the round of 16 at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup ahead of their clash with Brazil in La Plata on Saturday afternoon. And in England, Chelsea interim manager Frank Lampard says he expects his players to do the basics right against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Lampard made this known while speaking to the media ahead of Chelsea's game at Manchester United tonight. He said that Chelsea have dipped below form this season, adding that the club has to explore every factor and make sure it does not happen again.
They need to go and show in a game where everybody's watching, it's a high-level game against a big opposition, and show their pride and show how they want to play. And I keep saying the same thing because we're getting to the back end of the season now, and I've been here a short time. But the reality of the moment to go and show your pride and quality on the stage that is Old Trafford at this stage, everything that's in the bank before that, how you've trained, how you've turned up, how the group is, all those little things allow you to go there and go, we're going to go head on with these, because those are the rules at the top end of football. So the players have to understand all the bits that come. So this game is a challenge for them. But I think going forward, to be able to challenge at these difficult stadiums against top teams, those day-to-day standards are the things that the players really need to understand. But they have a chance to show on Thursday that they are a talented group, and that there is a lot of reason to be optimistic. It's in their hands.
For Spain, La Liga president Javier Tebas says the league could reduce the amount of racist incidents in Spain's top flight in 6 or 7 months if it had the necessary powers. The Spanish league has requested more powers to punish incidents of racism. That came after Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. was the target of racist abuse at Valencia on Sunday. Vinicius has been the target of racist abuse a number of times this season, and the latest incident has seen him receive support from the footballing world. Tebas told the BBC that the league has registered 9 complaints about racist abuse directed specifically towards Vinicius. Under Spanish law, La Liga can identify and report cases, but not impose sanctions.
Every time I think of you, I always catch my breath. And I'm still standing here, and you're miles away. And I'm wondering why you left. And there's a storm that's raging.
Celebrities and fans have paid tribute to Tina Turner, the soul star behind hits like The Best and What's Love Got to Do with It, who has died aged 83. Beyonce said she was the epitome of passion and power. Also, Mick Jagger called her a wonderful friend and immensely talented performer. Turner was also praised by Mariah Carey and Oprah Winfrey as a survivor who overcame years of domestic abuse. The Obamas praised her for singing her truth through joy and pain. They were joined by current U.S. President Joe Biden, who noted that Turner had started life as a farmer's daughter and hailed her once-in-a-generation talent. The singer's death was announced yesterday by her publicist. No cause was given, but she had suffered a number of health issues in recent years, including a stroke and kidney disease. Known as the Queen of Rock and Roll, she was a firebrand on the stage and one of the most unforgettable vocalists of her generation.
Every time I think of you, I always catch my breath, and I'm still standing here, and you're miles away, and I'm wondering why you left. And there's a storm that's raging through my frozen heart tonight. I hear your name.
But that's all at this hour. But before we go, here is a recap of our major stories. President-elect Bola Tinubu says he understands the magnitude of the task ahead as he prepares to take on the mantle of leadership. In Kano State, the state's Attorney General Musa Abdullahi Lawan has withdrawn the murder case against Majority Leader of the House of Representatives Alhassan Adodoguwa. The Joint Health Sector Union, Johesu, has asked its members to embark on an indefinite strike. At the foreign scene, 3 people have been killed in a stabbing and shooting attack in central Japan. Please do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Westernspring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Westernspring Television. My name is Femi Olanipeku. Good evening.
Is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions.